energy in the room. It's really a great privilege to be here and to welcome you to Emory, to Atlanta, I should say. We have Emory on the brain today. To invite you to Atlanta and to welcome you on behalf of Emory University. Frankly, and I'm biased obviously, I can't think of a better place to hold the Imagining America Conference and to have participants come together to contemplate how to use narrative, how to use art, to impact and inform American campuses in very thoughtful ways. And I might have just run through that rather quickly, but it's extremely important. Art leads us to truth. It leads us to truths that sometimes we cannot access in other ways. It inspires us, teaches us, binds us together, sometimes temporarily tears us apart, and then we come back together. And as the co-directors Tim Eatman and Scott Peters acknowledged in the conference program, story is a powerful conduit to a way of knowing and learning. You can probably already tell that I'm quite a fan of storytelling, of narratives, of expressing us in different ways than we normally do, and through that way coming together. So if you indulge me, let me indulge myself for a second. I would like to tell you two stories. And I have an immediate disclaimer, which is that the stories are not my stories. They're stories about other people. The first story is about Natasha Threadaway. She is the Robert Woodward Professor of English and Creative Writing at Emory, and she has served 2 terms as Poet Laureate of the United States. It is the story of a child born to a black mother and a white father in 1960s in Mississippi. It takes place during an era when her parents' marriage was illegal in that state. Juxtaposed against her deeply personal experience, Natasha shares these of a soldier in the Native Guard, the first African-American Union troop in the Civil War. The soldier was charged with guarding white Confederate captives. Natasha's stories entered its public life as a book-length poem, and it's now being staged at the Atlanta Alliance Theater through music, image, and text. Both versions of the story allow the storyteller to reclaim her mother's memory after a tragic death and to reclaim the voices of black soldiers whose service has been lost in our collective memory. That's one story I'd like you to think about. The second story comes from a recent graduate from Emory. His name is Jake Kirkowski. During his studies, Jake wrote an honors thesis that went on to develop as a one-man show, Yankel on the Moon. His thesis was a play that he wrote. The subject involved catastrophic tragedy that survived the Holocaust. The risk he took and the courage that he had is that he developed the subject matter as a play that was a comedy. And typically we don't think about expression of anything having to do with the Holocaust in the context of a comedy. At the premiere of his work, he performed a solo piece while his grandfather was sitting in the audience. His grandfather was a Holocaust survivor. He watched in the audience, and Jake's R2 will be hosted at the Alliance Theater this spring. So you can see how sometimes we think about one form of expression, story, and then it finds different ways, and how we also use those forms of expression to tell things that otherwise might be difficult to talk about or difficult to connect around. I share these stories for several reasons. One is to tap into our collective experience. It allows us to share deeply personal and important truth through art, through creative expression. Another reason is to know that you at this conference are with friends, with people who all value stories as a means of public discourse. The stories are tangible examples of the value that Emory places on art as a way of teaching, learning, and impacting our lives. We have lots of ways of expressing and valuing art on campus. You probably won't make it from here to the Emory campus, partly because public transportation in the Atlanta area, if you haven't experienced it yet, is somewhat underdeveloped. On campus, we have the Carlos Museum of Art, where it brings the campus and the community together. It's the place where you walk by, you see lots of yellow school buses, and kids from all over the Atlanta area that get to go to a museum, that get to be on a campus, and that get to learn in ways that are otherwise probably not available to them. The university also brings, I have reading glasses that are slipping away, so the university also brings students, faculty, and staff together at the Schwartz Center for the Arts, another wonderful place that we have. If I may just focus on one of our creative departments, the Department of Creative Faculty. The faculty there do all the scholarly things that faculty members are expected to do. They publish, they have all sorts of scholarly products, and I'm quite proud to share with you that as a campus, we've moved away from just sort of thinking of the traditional outcomes, the traditional products, if you wish, that faculty produce, but there is a lot of appreciation for creative ways of sharing your scholarship. We also don't just want to focus on garnering recognition. If you look at faculty in other departments, such as music, dance, theater, the visual arts, and many others, one of the threads that goes through all of those is a deep engagement, an expectation of deep engagement of the students in artistic expression. And I think some of this goes to a comment that you heard earlier about the Commission of the Liberal Arts, where those are dimensions that we really want to help highlight. They're helping Emory students to become steeped as critical thinkers who will go into the world becoming lifelong learners. So it's about now, but it's also about the future. They're allowing our students to develop in storytellers. And when you read the media nowadays, you might see that there's a lot of attention, particularly in political circles. What are students learning when they go to college? And we don't think about issues that students are learning to tell stories. And I know you're an easy audience because I don't have to convince you that teaching people to tell stories is incredibly valuable and powerful. They help us weave the we together, as we already discovered, and that's probably why you're at this meeting. I want to talk a little bit about the we at this meeting and recognize some collaborators who have helped make this happen. Particularly Kennesaw State University, Auburn University, Alternate Roots, the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. And the risk of giving a list is that you might forget somebody. So I apologize if there are people and groups I should have recognized that I have not recognized. Let me stop talking because you have much more important business to do, but please accept my welcome from all of us to you, to be here together, to be in Atlanta. I wish you a conference filled with discovery of new truth, meaningful reflection that leads to action, and good stories. So thank you and have a wonderful conference.